I think some people think, well, that's not what I want to do. So I'm not going to do that. It's like, well, no, wait, hang on a second. If you kind of enjoy it, maybe that is exactly what you're supposed to do.
How can a set of skills lead you down the path to success? That's what we're setting out to answer on the EdUp Canada podcast. I'm your host, Michael Sangster. Join me as we unpack how leaders around the world have taken training and skills and turned that into a lasting career. Now let's learn together. Welcome back to the EdUp Canada podcast. I'm Michael Sangster, your host. And if we got a podcast for you, are you tired of feeling smart? Well, we've got the podcast for you today. Were you looking to meet a celebrity with a last name Reynolds? We've got the wrong podcast for you because today we've got Stuart Reynolds, not Ryan Reynolds, Brittlestar, but he's often confused for him because of his good looks, aren't you?
That's right. Exactly. I think for those who are listening to the audio version of the podcast, I'm much better looking than Ryan. So
here's the good news. We don't use the video.
Oh, then I am absolutely doesn't matter. Then just take my word for it. I'm better looking.
Just as good looking. We had the pleasure a couple of years ago of having Stewart, also known as Brittlestar, join us for our conference in Ottawa, but also did bit of a members meeting where we had a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. We still owe him a bit of an apology because we hadn't been together as a group in a couple of years because of COVID. And then we put him on a stage in a brewery after everybody had been drinking for a couple hours. And there wasn't a lot of room left for you in that crowd, was there, Stuart?
There were 4 people from Quebec who really enjoyed it. And the
you
rest
had a full
of the people,
crowd, though.
It was an amazing crowd. And if they were aware that I was on stage, it would have been fantastic. But it was an entertaining night for everybody, including me.
Really wanted to have Stuart on for just to mix it up a little bit. We talk about education, we get deep into stuff, but I thoroughly enjoy, and I know a bunch of people that thoroughly enjoy watching your videos and your podcast too, where you talk politics seriously, but you also have a lot of fun.
Sure.
You put it earlier to me very well. Economic Armageddon's good for you.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of national existentialism, all that kind of stuff. Whenever there's fear in people's hearts and they're worried about survival, that's my time to shine. I've got some content for you that'll be perfect for you.
You have been having a lot of fun. I do love your segments, and I haven't seen one recently. Maybe you've done one, but your American Neighbor Over the Fence.
Yeah. That's, of course, based on a video I did back in 2017. Weirdly, I did it for Canada Day, which isn't that weird. But what's weird about it is that an agency asked me if I would like to make it into a KFC ad. And I thought, okay, well, I'd do that, I guess. So we did that. And it's exactly as you said. It's to Canada, played by me, talking over the back fence in the backyard to America, also played by me. And just talking about the differences between Canada and America, but in a very sort of Canada pride, sort of, being proud of what Canada has to offer way. Yeah, it would end up being really successful. I think it's got like 65 million views it sort of got up to, which was crazy. It was the biggest branded video in the world in 2017. It beat out Nike by 10 million. Cristiano Ronaldo, he got 10 million less than me.
You are bigger than Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, listen, I wasn't messing around. Better
You're
looking.
Not kidding. 65 million, really?
Yeah, 65 million. There was 34 million in the first 5 days. And it was like, at the time, it was like, well, we've got about 2 more million. We've covered the population at the time of Canada. So that should be fine.
It's an interesting time for sure with what you do with a bit of satire, but you're serious about what you're doing. What's your gut reaction to what's happened since January 20th?
It's been really fascinating, actually. I think there's been, to me, the most noticeable thing is that Canadians have realized we've been taking a lot for granted. And I think that even just the whiff of a threat of that being taken away from us was like, whoa. We're going to complain about Canada. We're going to complain about healthcare. We're going to complain about taxes. We're going to complain, but no. We don't want to get rid of it. We want to just make it better. So I think that was most interesting to me was the fact that the Canadian population kind of went, hang on, we've got a lot of great stuff here in Canada. We should be proud of it. And I'm all for that. I'm absolutely all for that. I wouldn't have been for that when I was a kid. I was actually thinking about this today earlier about how growing up, I had like the USA hockey jersey. I had like the Forever Free hats and all that kind of stuff, like right into the marketing of America. And it wasn't really cool to be Canadian. It sort of felt inferior, like this sort of geeky little brother. But I think we've learned now that we've got a lot of cool stuff, and we've done a lot of cool stuff and a massive impact on the world stage. So there's nothing wrong with being Canadian.
There's been so many interesting pivots on the political side too. But my favorite line I've heard is that we've taken back our flag.
Oh
I
yeah,
lived in Ottawa through the truck stuff, and it wasn't fun to watch. But it feels like we've taken back our flag, doesn't it?
it does. We've taken it back. We've dry cleaned it and patched it up a little bit, and it's flying again, which is great. Which is really funny because I mean, one of the things that's isn't necessarily very Canadian is that flag flying, very American sort of patriotism sort of on display. However, like our neighbors across the back here put up a flag about 3 days ago, and it's like, this is great. This is awesome. There's nothing, it's not sort of being, it's not chanting Canada like USA, but at the same time, it's like, again, we've got lots of stuff to be proud of and lots of stuff to be happy about here.
It was funny how the country even stopped during that Four Nations Cup little hockey tournament. All of a sudden, that game meant a lot more to a lot of people, didn't it?
God, I'm so glad it went the way it did.
It would have been hard to handle the other version of it.
It would have been a bit, exactly, we would have turned to curling or something. Well, we'll get them in curling. Yeah.
Fortunately, we do tend to beat the Americans in curling.
That's true, exactly.
But we're just having trouble with other countries lately. But
yeah,
Rachel Holman won the Worlds. We fell a little short on the men's side, but the competition's quite strong. I'm a curler. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing. Like, you followed politics closely. The shift we've seen is pretty incredible in Canada during the course of the campaign. We've gotten to that, I call it the throw the bums out stage.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a certain point where the government needs to go. And it seems like that's all been forgotten. We still don't know who's going to win this. We've got a long ways to go, but it seems like that noise is gone.
I mean, the messaging that we've had given to us for the past few years has been Canada is broken. And I think everyone quickly came to the realization that's not going to work when you've got an outside force who's threatening you. That kind of attitude doesn't work. It's not like, it'd be like being a hockey team or something and the coach saying, listen, guys, our team sucks and we're not going to win. And we're really broken right now. And we've got no defense and our offense is a joke. Let's get out there and do our best. That's not the kind of messaging that works. You need the rah-rah. You need a little bit of pep talk. You need a little bit of the confidence boost of, again, being reminded of what we've got and what we have and what we want to maintain and keep. But it has been amazing. It has been told. I did a interview with a U.S. publication yesterday, and they were asking the same question, essentially, sort of, what happened? Like, what did it actually flip? The sort of general mood. And I was like, yeah, it kind of did. Again, because saying something's broken and terrible is not the right messaging right now.
Tell me a little bit about your own journey, because one of the things we do talk about in this podcast, obviously, we talk about education, we talk about training, but to me, it's actually the journey. There's no straight line. You didn't wake up one day thinking you'd be doing ads for KFC.
No.
In your backyard. That was actually filmed in your backyard, wasn't it? The big chair?
in my backyard. And
did you get to keep the chair?
Yes, we've still got the chair. It is entirely useless because it is 8 feet wide and about 6 feet high. It is a crazy huge chair. We thought of it as putting it on the front of your lawn and letting kids sit on it. But then there's an insurance concern, liability. Some kid's going to break their arm. It's not worth it. So it just stays in our basement. Yeah, no, there is no straight line. And I think, when you're younger, you sort of think to yourself, I read a really great quote by Guillermo del Toro a few days ago saying, I've never felt older than I did when I was in my 20s. And it was incredibly accurate to me. I thought back about being in my 20s. I thought about my sons who are in their 20s and just how you feel like I've got to have things figured out. And it's like, you don't. Nobody does. And even if you think you do, you don't. Give it time. Things will change. You're going to have to readjust course and you're going to have to recalibrate where you're headed and what you're doing, and also reassert a perspective on things, which is important. But yeah, no, for sure. Like, I've been doing this content creation, creating videos and content on social media as a full-time gig, coming up on 12 years this summer. So it's just, I started when I was 43. It was ridiculous. What do you do? I'm a grown man, but I'm making videos on my phone. It's insanity. It doesn't make any sense at all. But, you don't rail against your own successes. You have to just sort of follow where success wants to take you. That's it.
What do you call yourself? Do you call yourself a comedian?
Someone said to me, we were at a show 2 nights ago, and someone said they were very excited to see me, which was really good for my ego. And they were explaining to their spouse, who had no idea who the hell I was. She said to him, "This is Brittlestar. He's the satirist." And I thought, oh, that sounds lofty. I like it. I like it.
I like that. Satirist. It's interesting how many people I talked about you, but then I show them your photo and they go, "Oh, I know that guy."
Yeah.
But
Well,
they don't know the name as you keep continuing building your brand of who you are, right?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the weird things about social media. There's a couple of things there. One is the weird thing about social media celebrity, and I'm air quoting that for those people listening, because it is actual celebrity, but it's its own kind. And the reason it's its own kind is because it's very siloed. I remember meeting Charlie D'Amelio, which is a young woman who is incredibly successful on social media. And when I met her at an event in the States, it was my youngest son who was super excited to meet her. And he introduced us, and I happened to know the woman who was managing her, and I didn't realize that she was managing her. And she said, hello, we talked for a little bit. And it was great. And I was like, oh, it's lovely to meet you. That's really great. And then afterwards I said to my son, I was like, well, who is that? And he said, well, it's Charlie D'Amelio. She has 129 million followers on Instagram or something like that. And it was like, oh, I've never heard of her before in my life. But such is the nature of social media. It's very, very siloed, very, everyone gets to pick their own entertainment. It's much like the great thing of, well, it's great and horrible, but a great point made about things like TikTok is that everybody's home feed is different. You can have two people standing side by side and look at the exact same first For You page, the home feed of the app, and they'll be entirely different content because everyone's getting content that's just for them, for better or worse. So it's very, very different. It's very interesting. That, and then also the whole idea when you're saying you're showing pictures of me and people know who I am, that actually came from some advice that was given to me in my very first viral video in 2013, August 2013. I did a video called Put Your Finger on the Screen. And it was just a silly video where it looked like you were making me spill water and things were happening. Light switches were going on and off and all that kind of stuff. And it was only on Vine, but it went crazy. It went crazy, crazy viral. There was millions of views. I gained 100,000 followers within a couple of days. It was just craziness. And TV shows were copying. The Voice Australia had like all the people on that show doing it. It was really, really weird. Newspapers were ripping it and posting it. I said to a friend how great it was to have, this success, but it feels like it's just being stolen from me. I can't stop it from being stolen. I'm not capitalizing on it. And they said, as long as your face shows up and you look somewhat the same as you did in the last video, they're going to at least know it's yours. And they're going to know it's you. So that kind of was embedded in my head as far as an entrepreneurial mindset of just like, you're branding yourself. You're always branding yourself. And it's the David Byrne from the Talking Heads quote of, if you wear the same thing every day, people will remember you. You don't have to go that extreme. You should probably change your clothes. But that idea, though.
I should point out, I'm not walking around with photos of you showing them to people on the street randomly. It was preparing for today, of course.
I think the lady doth protest too much.
Yes, I think so as well. It's funny, before we get into something else, you just mentioned something about The Voice. You've got a neat little family story about The Voice, don't you?
Yeah. Last year, my mom, this past September, it aired. My mom was on The Voice UK. And it was a fantastic experience. That my mom's done some spoken rap videos before on social.
Your mom has done spoken rap.
Yeah,
that's
like covers of
I didn't expect today.
Yeah, like by the rapper Designer or by Drake, Eminem, that type of thing. She's a 5 foot. She used to be 5'4". Her passport says 5'4". She's about 5'2". She's lucky. She's this little Scottish woman, and she would recite rap lyrics, and she ended up with like 36 million views over the period of a couple of years, which is great. And the producers of The Voice UK contacted me and said, hey, listen, would your mom like to be on The Voice UK? And I said, well, first of all, we live in Canada, and she lives in Canada, but thank you very much. I said, but secondly, and at the time, because my mom had made videos from 2015 to 2018, then my dad got diagnosed with Parkinson's and Parkinson's dementia, and she became his full-time caregiver. And so she was working 24/7 flat out and on the verge of burning out pretty quickly. And I said, this isn't going to work. This is because she's my dad's full-time caregiver, and we really appreciate this. Is super excited. It's not going to work. The next day they emailed back and they said, would you please ask her one more time? And I said, okay, well, fine, I guess I'll bother her with this. So I asked her, I said, this is producers contacted us. They'd like you to be on The Voice UK. And before I could finish, my mom said, absolutely, let's do it. So it was a weird time, and even made even 10 times weirder. And this is a bit sort of darker, more darkly comedic, but at the same time, it's funny and just in general. We filmed her first segment, February 25th. My dad died on January 25th. So 4 weeks later, we were in Manchester in this studio in Media City. And my mom comes out. The crowd goes crazy. She's overwhelmed by the crowd. Everyone's up on their feet. She gets a chair turn. And at the end of her performance, she's talking to the judges, which include Leanne Rimes, these guys from the band called McFly, who are very big in the UK, Sir Tom Jones, and will.i.am. And will.i.am's talking to her, and she says to him, and we're watching from side stage, on camera, but from side stage. She says to will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas, I was actually singing one of your songs yesterday. And I'm thinking, no, she wasn't. She barely knows anything about Black Eyed Peas. And he says, oh, really? What was it? She was going to, tonight's going to be a good night, that one. And he goes, do you want to sing it together? And she went, yeah, okay. And I was like, oh my God. So he went up on stage, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm smiling because I'm happy. I'm very overwhelmed with emotion, but I'm also thinking she doesn't know this damn song. Like she doesn't, what's she going to do? But she pulled it off. She faked it and she pulled it off. She did the oohs part and did the harmonizing with him and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, good for you. That's amazing. But it was 4 weeks to the day. So my sister and myself and my niece were standing side stage in Manchester. And 4 weeks earlier, we had been in the hospital room with my dad as he died. And it was like, this is life in 4 weeks.
Needed. It's what she needed in that moment.
Exactly. And it was a real big reminder. It was a big reminder of that life, can turn on a dime for the better or the worse. It can. So don't worry. Just hang on. Something's going to change.
So you don't become a satirist because you hate politics or hate Canada or hate what's going on. You become a satirist because you want to improve things, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Or you have an edge, or you see something that annoys you. So what do you think about the current state of our politics in Canada?
I think
we look south. I'm going to start. We look south and we get anxious. There's no doubt about it.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think we do look south and get anxious. And I think that's probably a good thing for us to do. I think that to extend the sibling analogy with the US and Canada, we watched our elder sibling and we've tried to mimic some of the stuff they do. And we've hopefully learned from some of the mistakes they've made at the same time. But I think the current state of politics right now is really distressing in a sense because there's an incredible amount of disinformation. And it's very hard to also find out where to get your information from. The good old days, and more air quotes there, when you'd have, a newscast at 6 and one at 11 and you have the daily paper, that was fine because you kind of that was the news. Of course, we all know that was the news was flawed in lots of different ways when it was just like that as well. But now there's so many outlets, so many places for people to get information. It's really difficult to filter it. And I think that's the biggest concern I have with the current state of politics now is that you're not quite sure exactly what messaging you're getting.
Well, I think that's a good way to look at it. That's probably the gravest concern I have is just looking around the room at what people are portraying as facts.
Yeah.
All sides.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter who it is. It's because everybody's, when you're putting out messaging, everything's marketing. Life is marketing. And regardless of who you are, your messaging is always going to have an angle. And what we really sorely need is some trusted sources to say, this is largely true. However, the point of this messaging is this. They want you to think about this way. And that's difficult.
Well, that's well put. And I look at a couple of things. Like you have to feel sorry for Donald Trump in a way that he's been saddled with that USMCA deal that was so poorly negotiated by people before him.
Whatever the clown was that signed that deal.
I find myself at times, and I think this is why I wanted to talk to you a little bit, was I find myself anxious to even comment now. And there are some outrageous statements that need to be called out for what they are, but we get anxious about calling because we don't want to get sucked into the debate.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly with social media, you don't have to swing at everyone. That's for sure. You don't have to engage with everyone. You don't have to. I mean, I always equate it to being in a bar and you're walking to or from the bathrooms in the bar and you're passing various pockets of people saying the dumbest things you've ever heard in your life. Maybe someone says your hair looks stupid. Your choices are, do I stop at this booth and do I correct these people? Do I stop and talk to the drunk who just made fun of my hair? No, not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. Keep moving. It's transient. Doesn't matter. Who cares? But it's tiring because you don't want to be like, when you're voicing an opinion, it's hard not to sound combative on social media. Everyone sounds like they're ready for a fight, and not everyone's needing to be fought. It's not worth it. Again, you don't have to swing at everybody. It's just not worth it.
It's not. So let me pivot the conversation a little bit. You've transitioned your life. I won't say you've transitioned yourself, but you've transitioned your career, as you said,
Yeah.
into this place you never thought you'd be. Any advice for students about how to pursue changing a path? Because when you look at the sector that you had the pleasure of meeting many of our members on a couple of occasions, we're about retraining people. Our average student is in their late 30s, 60% female. It's a different kind of group. But what's your advice to an individual who's thinking about going in a new direction?
I think a couple of things. One is, again, realizing that things can change for the better as fast as they can change for the worse. So everyone always catastrophizes and always thinks things are just going to get worse. This is just going to be terrible. It's not going to work out. But the exact same logic, things can get amazing, unbelievably quickly. So just keep that as a motivator for, it's like thinking about opportunity as the weather. It's like the weather will change. It's not going to stay the same. It doesn't stay the same. It will change. That, and I think also not railing against your successes, not railing against your strengths. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I want to be this, whatever this happens to be. And they will head down that path. And if they're met with obstacles that maybe send them off in a slightly different direction, which they're successful as such at, or they're doing well at, or they seem to have a strength for, a propensity for, I think some people think, well, that's not what I want to do. So I'm not going to do that. It's like, well, no, wait, hang on a second. If you kind of enjoy it, maybe that is exactly what you're supposed to do. I think for myself, creating comedic, satirical content on social media was not something that I drew in kindergarten when they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think back to sort of what I wanted to do is like, well, I would like to be maybe, entertaining people. I'd like to be my grandfathers were both entertainers. It's like, I'd like to be a singer, maybe. I'd like to do music and I'd be on stage and do all that kind of stuff. And realizing as I would sort of head down the pathway of life, it's like, well, okay, that's not exactly where I'm ending up going, but a lot of those same elements are applying here. And I shouldn't be so upset with I shouldn't be upset with the fact that I'm successful doing something else. I should be like, how do I make this scratch that itch in other ways? And I think that's my advice, is to just, be open to where you're going to be, where your strengths are. Be open to, and just follow that.
It's interesting. I've just gone through a process with the executive of our board of directors and my chairman. And he said one of the objectives he wants to see on my plan for the next year is Mike be Mike. And it took me for a minute. He goes, he said, just be yourself with these things. And then he pivoted me back to, don't do this. You're not good at it. You've got people that are really good at administration stuff. Don't do that stuff, but go be you, because that's what you're really good at. Now I turned it around and said, that gives me free reign come review time. I was just being me. So check mark, I'm good. Right.
Yeah.
But then he wants some direction around that. But it was kind of a similar message. You just take a risk at what you're good at and keep going there.
Yeah, and keep going and just sort of follow the path as follows the way the opportunities push you. It's a bit sort of like, putting your sail up and trusting the wind a little bit, trying to control it into generally the direction you want to go to, but not being afraid of like, well, we're really going quickly this way and this looks pretty good. We should go this way.
My curling team keep telling me I'm a world-class ass. So keep being one, because you're really, really good at it.
You're really good at it.
Yeah, so I keep applying myself there. We ask everybody a couple of questions. So I'm going to get there now about a couple of important things. I'm going to start with a mentor. And it's been an interesting process because every interview we've done, I've thought of a new one. But talk to me about a mentor in your life that's had a big impact.
I mean, there's been so many people who have been very helpful and who have helped me and helped guide me. I mean, right from the obvious choices of parents and all that kind of stuff. But I think back to like professionally and creatively, the one person that's an odd one, and I don't think many people will know who this person is, but a guy named Stephen Duffy. Stephen Duffy famously was the original lead singer for the band Duran Duran. And he left the band to write a book. And I remember reading about that in 1984, whatever it was, and 83 maybe, and thinking, wow, that is the coolest dumb thing I've ever seen in my life. And he ended up having a very successful career. He's written lots of hits with the Bare Naked Ladies as well as with Robbie Williams. And he also, I got to know him in 2003 when I wanted to make an album, and he ended up sort of remotely co-writing this album with me and helped me. And I think it was great because he was a bit of a musical hero to me, and still is. And but he made me want to be better and take myself a little bit more seriously. Not meaning take myself seriously, but meaning not be ashamed and not be embarrassed to take pride in what I was trying to do, and not being embarrassed about what I was doing in general. Kind of like, this is my idea. And if you don't like the idea, that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just means you don't like the idea. So I credit him with kind of making me realize that it was okay to try, and to make me feel like there's, if I'm able to work with a guy like that, then we've all got a chance, basically. So that's I was going to say Stephen Duffy.
That's an interesting perspective. Before we get to the last question, we try and keep this around a half hour, and I do have to apologize to my friends Ian and Patrick, who were going to be on this episode, but we couldn't quite make it work. For those of you keeping track, we now say that on every episode because we're never going to have Ian or Patrick on the podcast. Anything you want to get into a little bit that's happening lately, or you want to talk about?
I mean, I think the big thing, of course, in Canada right now is the election that's happening. And I one of the things that's been driving me nuts for years has been voter apathy. This idea that things don't affect me currently. So why bother? I'll just keep it. I'll just ignore it and not get involved. And I think that, one of the things that's happened in the past 8 years, 9 years, I guess now, is that things that were determined to be politics are no longer just politics. They're kind of more moral, ethical issues. And as opposed to policy, I mean, there's lots of politicians and friends who are on various sides of the political spectrum who I think are smart and great and have really great ideas. But there's some stuff happening where it's like, I think we should pay attention. I think we should get involved. And being involved means, to me, at the very least, going to go vote. So making the effort to go vote. Not voting is not an excuse. It's not going to cut it anymore. It's just that whole attitude of it's a very entitled attitude. And I don't think it has any place anymore. That's the one thing that's bothering me currently is voter apathy. And I hope we get massive turnout for this election.
You had on your really great podcast, which I love the fact that that's what you call your podcast, a really great podcast. You had a great conversation about why are we so pathetically apathetic, actually. That's quite interesting. So I encourage people to check that out. I agree with you. I was raised that you roll up the sleeves, you get involved in the community, you vote. And I'm actually optimistic that this time people are going to take it like it's just such an obvious example of what's happening south of us that we need to engage.
You need to make your voice heard. Absolutely. Yeah. I've got high hopes for this election too. So we'll see.
But I worked with Prime Minister Turner during 2 elections against Prime Minister Mulroney.
Right.
We thought that too, but there was still a lot of apathy around us then, and those were
one of my favorite
campaigns.
Stories. Actually, is meeting Prime Minister Turner. Actually, I used to work at a hotel in Kingston, Ontario, and he came in. I think he was there for his son's graduation, perhaps. I don't know how it was, and came to the front desk, and it was after the Mulroney Turner debate, where I can't even remember now. I've lost who. One of them said, "You sir, no patriot."
Yeah,
and
that would be 84, I believe.
Yeah. And so it was, he came to the front desk in this small hotel, and he said, "John Turner to check in." I said, "I know who you are, sir, of course." And I said, you sir, in room 101. And he went, "Ah," and then just walked away.
He was a great man. And sadly, we lost him during COVID. One of the things I've said is it's not one of the great tragedies of COVID because thousands and hundreds of thousands of people died, but he didn't get a state funeral.
Yeah.
And he was a great parliamentarian. He loved
he was
that
a good
place.
guy.
He loved the process. And what I was struck with is it never seemed personal between him and Mr. Mulroney, though.
No, not at all.
There was great big ideas.
Yeah.
I think we were right about some. We were wrong about some. Free trade's been good for Canada. We were wrong, but it was never personal between them.
No. Yeah, which I'd like to get back to those days.
It would be wonderful to get back to those days. So let me finish up because you've been obviously quite successful, whether you planned it or not. What do you think is a skill that has made you successful? And did you develop it later in life, or is it something you've kind of always had?
I think a skill that has helped me, a personal skill that has helped me, is my tenacity and a determined dedication to my laziness at the same time.
Determined dedication to laziness.
Yeah, I think that's helped me head down my laziness has helped me head down some paths that I would have maybe otherwise not planned on heading down, meaning career-wise, which have led me to good things. Again, not railing against my success, finding out, I can do this, I guess this is what I'm doing. And I think tenacity, just being like realizing that just keep doing stuff. That's the key. Just keep doing stuff, making moves. Little moves every day, even if that move is, vacuuming the house. That's great. If that move is applying to college, whatever, that's even better. That's great. Take those little steps, move one step forward every day, and you'll end up probably somewhere good.
It doesn't sound like a dedication to laziness, though, when you say it that way.
Yeah, but it's laziness because I think, no, fine, I'll vacuum the house, whatever.
Dedicated to vacuuming the house.
It's either that or something that's harder. I could vacuum or I could actually write something. Well, I'll just vacuum. That sounds easier.
There's a very good chance we're going to connect with Shannon to find out the last time you actually did vacuum the house.
I'll have you know that I am the vacuumer in our family. I am the guy who gets it clean, but I don't do pretty much anything else. So.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us. It was kind of funny. We weren't sure where we'd go today. We just thought we'd kind of have fun, a little bit of fun during the middle of the election and not be deeply serious about policy and education, but kind of look back at what's going on. But I really like your point about apathy and the importance of getting out and voting in this campaign. It is a big one. It's, again, as every election is called, the greatest election, the most important election of our time.
Yeah.
Until the next one, right?
Sure. Exactly. Yeah, no, it's super important. If you can vote, get out there and vote, or I will mock you.
Or you'll mock you, which I think is fair. I think we should publish the registries of people who voted in a more aggressive way. I think it should come with an increase to the cost of all of your government forms.
Yeah.
If you can't be bothered.
Sure.
But then I sit around and listen to some of my friends talk about politics, and I'm glad they don't vote. So it balances out.
Exactly. Maybe a skill testing question, like on those double bubble wrappers when you used to win stuff, you'd have to do 2 + 6 times 2 or 3 or something. You have to get the answer right. Maybe that's all we need. That would
be an interesting way of doing it. There's a lot of things that we could probably put that test on.
Absolutely.
So I look forward to getting together again soon, and I appreciate you making the time today. We have a little bit of fun, but also talk about a couple of serious things. So Stuart, great to see you again. You are by far the most famous celebrity named Reynolds who is currently in Canada.
I'll take it. Thanks for having me on. Great chatting.
If you decide to buy a football team in the CFL or something, just to, I bring Ryan along for the ride.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Thanks for joining us. And we look forward to seeing everybody again in a week for the next edition of the Ed Up Canada podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Ed Up Canada podcast. We release new episodes regularly, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when they are officially out. If you love this episode, please leave a 4 or 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts so that others can also discover how a set of skills can lead to success. Thanks for learning with us.